Hey guys, Dr. Ben here at the Functional Medicine Centers, and I'm going to go over today what diabetes is, what you can do for diabetes, how you get diabetes, and how you can actually reverse diabetes in as little as 6 to 8 weeks. So diabetes is rampant. The statistics are amazing out there. You look at over 85,000 people a year die just from diabetes. There's direct correlation between the blood sugar imbalances with diabetes and cardiovascular disease, and even cancer, metabolic state of cancer. All these different conditions are contributed to by this high glucose state. What we're looking at is diabetes is when your body is no longer able to use the glucose, able to get the glucose into the cells. And then we start having this inflammatory cascade. We start creating a lot of damage in the body. For 80% of the population in the United States, they have what's called insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is either you already have diabetes or you're on your way to diabetes. So we have 80% of the population in the United States that's either on their way or they already have diabetes. And a lot of them don't even know that they have it. And we're talking about type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is a different animal altogether. It's autoimmune. We're talking about type 2 diabetes. So what happens is over time, when we eat the wrong things, carbohydrate, starch, glucose, all these things that convert into glucose in the bloodstream, eventually the body is not able to respond to insulin, and that's insulin resistance. Insulin grabs glucose, pulls that glucose over to the cell. It goes into the cell and we make energy. So this is one of the reasons why people that have diabetes are tired all the time. They don't have the energy. They don't have the get up and go like they used to because they're not utilizing their glucose. Glucose and oxygen are the two biggest things that we need to power our brain, to power our muscles, our heart, everything that we have in our body. We need that glucose and we need that oxygen. So even if somebody has excess glucose in their bloodstream, they're still not getting it to their cells because they have that insulin resistance. So what we know and what we've done with patients for years and years and years is that you can actually reverse full-blown diabetes in as little as 6 to 8 weeks. We see it all the time. People in the hemoglobin A1C in the 6s, 7s, 8s, and they're getting it down in the 5s in a matter of weeks. What's hemoglobin A1C? Anybody know what hemoglobin A1C out there is? Go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you do. Hemoglobin A1C is where you are averaging your blood sugar over a 3-month time span. So it's great. We run A1C on everybody, but especially for people that are diabetic, you need to know where that's running. The optimal range that we like to see is 5.2. Hey, we got some thumbs. Great job, guys. Hemoglobin A1C. We've got some 5.1, 5.2, 5.3 is going to be that ideal range for A1C for the average. 5.7 is pre-diabetes. 5.9 to 6, somewhere in that range, we're getting into the diabetes range. Most labs say 6.4, 6.5, 6.6. By that point, it is too late. You are already diabetic. We've got to take massive action. Even if somebody's getting up into the 5.5, 5.6, 5.7, we know their blood sugar is going up too high. So what do we look for when we look at someone's blood work to see if they're diabetic, to see if they're insulin resistant, any of these things? We look for a couple different things. We look at triglycerides. A lot of people look at triglycerides as a blood fat and they go, oh, it's just like cholesterol. It must be eggs and butter and cheese and all those things. That's not it. It's directly related to glucose and what your blood sugar is doing, especially if it's going up. So triglycerides. You also need to look at non-fasting insulin. A lot of times fasting insulin will come back and it'll be okay, but when we check it non-fasting, it's actually going to be super high. We saw the other day a 9-year-old boy, his insulin was 118. You don't want it over 7, and it was 118 at 9 years old. We've got a 16-year-old girl we're working with, and hers was over 110. We have kids kids that are insulin resistant already, this close to diabetes in their single digit and teens. It's rampant, it's everywhere. It's something that's constantly needing to be addressed. And this is the real pandemic out there, is that this blood sugar is causing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of deaths a year in the United States. We've got to get it under control, and we've got the tools to do that. So let's take a step back. Glucose is going to be converted from food in the bloodstream. So that's going to be carbohydrate, a starch, a fruit, a grain, a bean, anything like that is going to be converted into glucose. So there's carbohydrates, there's proteins, and there's fats are the three main categories of foods. Carbohydrates are coming into the body and getting broken down into glucose. Glucose is going to be great. It's a fuel source for a lot of different things, but in excess, that's where the problems come into play. So what happens? That glucose is supposed to be taken up into the cells, supposed to be utilized by the cell, and then turned into energy. We've got the powerhouse of the cell, the mitochondria, making this ATP, making this energy. Great, glucose is great. But what happens in people that their blood sugar is doing this for years and years and years, up and down, up and down, up and down, it eventually will not get into the cells. And that's when we become diabetic. And so is that reversible? Absolutely. For years, we've been taught that once somebody's diabetic, you're diabetic. You've got to take what? Metformin. You've got to get on your insulin. You've got to take whatever new medication is out there for diabetes or for trying to stabilize glucose. But that is not true. We have people that get off of those medications all the time. This can happen, and it can work, and it can change very, very quickly. So, yes, the diabetes has been around for a long time, and it's getting to be a much bigger problem. We're seeing people in the teens that are full-blown diabetic already, just from what they're eating. We're seeing people in their 20s. The millennials have already worse health than Generation X. So people from teens up into their 30s already have way more diabetes, have higher blood sugar, all these issues already coming at us. So we've got to take massive action, and you can, and we see these changes all the time. I always preface it with this. We can reverse diabetes in as little as 6 to 8 weeks if somebody's willing to play the game. And playing the game means you've got to learn what works for your body and what doesn't. So you look at triglycerides, you look at non-fasting insulin, you look at your glucose, and I like non-fasting glucose, and you look at your hemoglobin A1C, and then you look at GGT. Those are the 5 factors that if you're getting your blood work run, you've got to check those out. GGT, that tells us if somebody has fatty liver. You don't want it over 20, 25, maybe 30. Yesterday, I had a guy that was 458 on his GGT. How fatty is that liver? Huge. I mean, it's got to be enlarged. It's major, major problem. He doesn't drink at all. In the old days, that's what drinking caused, was fatty liver. Nowadays, it's actually from those blood sugar swings up and down, all over the place. So diabetes is reversible. Diabetes can come back into that good range. And as long as somebody does what they need to do the rest of their life, they will never be diabetic again. We've seen this again and again and again with patients. Absolutely reversible. You do not have to be on medication the rest of your life. You don't have to progress to insulin, all of those things. This can be reversed. How do we do it? Well, my book that came out last year, Blood Sugar Doesn't Lie, it's on Amazon, all the booksellers. I talk specifically in there about how we do this process. We use a blood sugar monitor, and we start figuring out what foods make it go up, what foods make it go down. We gather data, and we come up with a game plan from there. There is no perfect diet for diabetes. If somebody tells you, hey, you got to do this diabetes diet, run. There is no such thing. In my book, I don't even have a diet. I don't have a menu. I don't have a meal plan, anything, because it is way more individualized than we ever knew. Get this. Sweet potato is supposed to be great for you, right? Sweet potato can make some people go up even more so than white potato. It's amazing. And we see some people can eat a banana, and banana is supposed to be real high in sugar, right? Some people can be totally fine with their blood sugar with banana, where somebody else will hit 150, 160, things like that. So there are no true rules for food and how it's going to affect your body. For your body individually, it's going to be very specific. So that's what you've got to learn. You've got to learn what foods are going to make it go up, what foods are going to make it go down, whether you're diabetic, whether you're hypoglycemic, whether your blood sugar swings 100 points every single day. You've got to figure out what the best diet for you is. I don't have that. My nutritionists don't have that. Nobody out there has that. And if they say they do, they're lying, because there is no such thing. We've tested it. We've looked at thousands of people and tracked their blood sugar, and every person is unique. Some people can eat a grain. Other people, every single grain makes their blood sugar go up. Some people can eat a whole bunch of fruit. Some people can eat no fruits at all. It's way more individualized than we've ever known. But we have documented on blood work A1C reversing 6s, 7s, 8s down into the 5s over and over and over. Diabetes does not have to be a lifelong thing. Diabetes does not have to be a forever thing. You can reverse diabetes, and it can start very quickly. In as little as 6 to 8 weeks, we will see people weaning off their medication, off their insulin, getting back to being vibrant, getting their brain back. Think about this. What do they call Alzheimer's now? Anybody know what they call Alzheimer's? Type 3 diabetes. Why? You've known people that get neuropathy in their hands and feet. Well, neuropathy of the biggest nerve bundle in the body is something you do not want. How many people die a year from Alzheimer's? Over 125,000 people a year die from Alzheimer's. And a big part of that is the diabetes, the high glucose that's taking place in there. So when you start looking at these, 85,000 people a year from diabetes, you've got over 600,000 people from cardiovascular disease, you've got 125,000 people from Alzheimer's. Yeah, we're definitely into a million person range a year in the United States that dies directly from what they're putting in their mouth and what their blood sugar is doing. It's a pandemic that is out of control, and yet it can be in control, and we see it every single day. That's why we're expanding. That's why we've got an office up and running in Phoenix, why we're looking at other locations to be able to bring this information and bring the tools that we have to the masses, because we can change the health of our nation, and that's what we have to do. We have to take that personal responsibility to get our immune system working better, to get our blood sugar stabilized, and reverse diabetes, prediabetes, insulin resistance. We see it in kids, we see it in adults. It doesn't matter. Age does not matter anymore. So if you guys have any questions at all, we'll have a link down below. I'm always open for doing a consultation. If you want to get on the phone, I can chat with you about how we go through this process and how we can reverse diabetes. You or a loved one, anyone you know that is having this issue, that their blood sugar is out of control, that they're not able to get it figured out, they don't know what to do, we are here to help. It's a passion of mine. I love fixing these things. It happens. It changes very quickly. So hope you guys have a great day and enjoy the weather out there. We'll see you soon, everybody.